So I think one of the primary things that I see as a differentiator, especially for Sprinkler, is it's trying to brand itself as a platform and not as a point solution, right? If you need a survey, come here, hyper-personalize it is what Qualtrics says. Medallia is not very different in terms of customizing, different forms to understand the customer experience and the voice of the customer. What Sprinkler is trying to do is more broad, right? It's really catering to all dimensions, what we used to call a 360-degree view of the customer, right? It's trying to cater to your marketing teams, your sales teams, your care teams and support, as well as your planning, product planning and the future of your own organization and your product roadmaps, if you will. So it's trying to give you a glimpse into supporting all those ecosystems, which today, believe it or not, even though we have great tools like Salesforce, and I'm a big fan of Salesforce, are still siloed in their approaches. And we literally require data scientists to connect the dots to kind of understand implications for each of them. But last but not least, I do want to mention that, it's the transition and transformation from CRM to CXM, right? Which is really where Sprinkler is standing out. And what I mean by that is, how a customer appears to a company is what CRM is all about. How you do personas, how you do demographic analysis, whatnot. But CXM actually, turns that on the concept on its head. How, as a company, as an enterprise, you appear to a customer is what CXM is all about. The perspectives, and the prejudices and the pros and cons that customers perceive. From that point of view, I think Sprinkler is truly, really trying to make a difference, especially with its AI module. We are using it actively as well, and it's been a godsend in some cases where it's highlighting some of the customer sentiment much better than even Salesforce Einstein. Primarily because it has a platform approach with some out-of-the-box capabilities that we don't have to figure out on our own.
I really appreciate it. I'm going to bring up one thing that I found interesting. When they came out, the CEO made a comment about federal government's intent to start breaking up big tech, and that how he believes Sprinkler, that is, their relationships with Microsoft and Cisco, could actually position them in a very good way. And he actually called himself basically an adapter to these large tech platforms. I'm wondering if that resonates with any of you, where you this is now becoming a game of alignment, where if you already have Salesforce, then fine, you'll use their module. But if you're a Microsoft or Cisco guy, then maybe Sprinkler fits in. I know Zendesk is now offering something with AWS if you have AWS as an infrastructure. So to anyone out there, I'd be curious about not only the CEO's comments about, but is this becoming a game, as Praveen mentioned, about transitioning from CRM to CXM? Is this a game of aligning yourself with the right vendors? Any thoughts on that?
I'll take a crack at it. I think it is critical for the alignment because it also simplifies the integration and data points that you're able to access across your enterprise. We have all of these tools and products out there, big products such as Salesforce, such as ServiceNow, that provide a lot of footprint across the environment, a lot of information. But as Praveen alluded to, they're very limited in what their focus is. You have something that can go across the environment and really minimize the need for you to have multiple integration points and reduce the number of integration efforts that's required in order to get the data that you want and that's meaningful. It's worth its weight in gold. You may pay a little bit more to get that, but at the end of the day, it's going to simplify your ability to really take this data, use it, and make it meaningful to your organization.
Yeah, that alignment. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Oh, I have to agree with Anthony there. We're dealing with dozens, 100 or more integrations, and now as we start to look at platforms, I think that really resonates with me. It is those that either already have built-in integrations with the platforms or other point solutions that we need to use, or they're willing to work with you on making that happen in a very seamless and timely transition. We can no longer spend months or years bringing up new technologies. We have to be able to go from RFP to implementation in weeks, and that just can't happen if the vendors aren't helping us along.
Excellent. I
So
appreciate
that's one thing that definitely resonates with all these different announcements you talked about, is the integrations that play there out of the box, make it happen, and you look to vendors that work with the platforms you already have in place.
I'm going to weave a couple of comments here because Praveen mentioned how important it is to be a platform. You're agreeing with that. You said price is very important, but now obviously that implementation, the ability to integrate with your existing is very important. But Marty also made a comment earlier and said these pure plays don't have the analytics in the background. So if I kind of mesh all of these together, who's taking the lead in this game right now? Like, where do you run? Are you better off aligning yourself with Salesforce because they'll figure it out eventually with their R&D and their money? Or, I'd just be curious. Marty, let me ask you, like, how do you think you align yourself to win in the long term?
I align myself with who I think has the best architecture. And, as anyone knows, having a really good data architecture matters when you're trying to, look at the 360-degree view of a customer. Going back to Sprinkler, why I'm a big fan of their platform, because it is a platform. They do a couple things really well. Number one, they advertise that if you have an existing CX stack, they'll integrate into it. They have APIs that you can take your existing customer experience solution and plug it into ours. Two, they have what they call is an experience data unification, which is basically a data model for unifying customer interactions across 30 plus channels. Three, they offer integrations right out of the box with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, etc. And then fourth, you can configure it with no code whatsoever into your existing CRM system. So basically, they become this Switzerland, again, an ERP system for all of your customer experience data. And they have multiple ways in which they can sell into your enterprise. So, for me, I wouldn't want to just, buy a product that can do this. I would want to buy a platform that can do this and enable this, that gives me many choices and options and flexibility, because this market's going to change and be turbulent over the next couple of years. Some of these point products I don't think are going to be around, but once you implement a platform into your environment, it's very hard to rip it out because it's integrated into so many different things. And I think Sprinkler does a really good job of entrenching itself into enterprises around that model.
Thank you, Marty. I'm going to open it up to the rest of the group while we're kind of talking about individual vendors and how they differentiate from each other. Anybody else want to join in and speak about any of those?
Yeah, well, the safe play is to go with the vendor that you already have implemented, right? So if you're already a strong Salesforce CRM customer, it's safe to do that. It may or may not be the best long-term fit for your company, depending on how Salesforce plays out in this. They may get it right, they may acquire somebody else, but that's definitely the safest bet. I really like what I'm seeing with Sprinkler, and just that agnostic approach they're bringing to this that we don't see with Salesforce, right? Salesforce wants to own the world, and so if you're in their platform, it is really hard to get out of it, and it just costs you a ton to bring in and try to connect various different data and use their platform. They want you to do everything with them and buy whatever new add-on they have tomorrow. So
there's a vendor lock-in component to it. Avoiding
there definitely is.
Right.
Yeah.
I just had a submitted question, guys. Forgive me for jumping around, but we had mentioned a little bit on the marketing side and how these two all tie together. And somebody had asked, can we ask the panelists why we're capturing these negative sentiment in Sprout Social? Now, I want to, whoever submitted that question, I do want to state that right now the survey is very preliminary. There's not a lot of citations here. So with just a few more responses, we could see these numbers change. But because it was a live submission, I do want to ask, does anyone have any experience with Sprout Social, or could maybe explain why we're seeing some negativity there? Nope, that's fine. That's fine. I appreciate it. I wanted to jump in and ask that. One of the other things that we were asked about, however, is Zendesk. And I don't know if any of you gentlemen still currently use them, but we had been asked a couple of questions about trying to understand Zendesk growth going forward. How penetrated do they seem to be? Is there room for expansion and more modules or more seats for them? Particularly when we're talking about, you know, their ability to play in this CRM to CXM transition. Anyone have any experience with them in that aspect?
We looked at it briefly, but the problem is really the data model around how they look at, you know, customer interactions, and it's not unified in a way where if I'm a marketing person and I want to create a campaign that's targeted towards people that have searched for these kinds of experiences on our platform, that it lends itself easily to do that. And so the only thing I would say is for a lot of these you know, bigger players that are trying to get into their space, the rewriting of their systems to deal with the 360-degree view of the customer is somewhat of a heavy lift, simply because a lot of them have dealt or have modeled their architectures around just a transaction versus an experience. So that may be, you know, something to keep an eye on.
Excellent. I do.
Hey, Eric,
Yeah,
I see a clarification in the Q&A about the Sprout Social question. So I can take a stab at that. You know, so really what the question is about is, you know, Sprout Social customers are having a negative attitude towards CXM in general. And so I can say from, you know, our perspective, that's where we are at the moment, because, you know, Sprout Social is cheap. You have people that know how to use it. It does a good enough job. It's not a platform, it's not a whole thing, but I can use it to you know, do a lot of the things by hand that, you know, the CXM platforms, Sprinkler specifically, indicate they'll do, you know, automated for you. And so, a Sprout Social customers, they may see it as a challenge to their job. They may not want to become data scientists. They may want to, you know, stick with the platform they really enjoy. So I can definitely see where existing, you know, Sprout Social customers would have say, you know, what we've got here is good enough and don't need a full platform.